Jaina versus Gul'dan.
Your soul shall be mine!
You asked for it.
Warlock is scary, but Mana Worm is pretty damn good. I think I'll keep the glyph with the Mana Worm, probably wouldn't keep it without. I think it's gotta be the counterspell, right? I think in a vacuum it's just the strongest card here, but it also fits nicely into a curve with Valet next turn.
Out of my jungle!
Not sure how good the secret Valet play is here. I have to send the Mana Worm in anyway. So maybe I go like secret plus another primordial glyph. Gives me 2 buffs on the worm I can smack into this. I think I like that line of play. Take another glyph. I can coin out the Molten Reflection here and just try to beat his ass with Mana Worms. Oh, I won't have the counter spell up though, so Hellfire. Let's just glyph. Firelands Portal's a good card. And let's protect the worm from a Spellstone. He's gonna be real sad when I coin Firelands Portal and smack him for 7. Show me Doomguard. Okay, that one's pretty damn good too. Still have the counterspell in play to protect my worm. If he doesn't have anything else, I think he's just dead. Frostbolts are 8 damage. Yep. Control deck, by the way.
Jaina versus Gul'dan.
Your soul shall be mine!
You asked for it.
I'll keep the worm because it's the best turn 1 play in the game, but don't see much of a reason to keep any of the other things. Early Aluneth. I might just see how it goes if I just play it on turn 6.
Side effects? No. Trust me.
Obviously it depends on the board state though. So I can hero power to protect my worm here. The worm is pretty scary. I guess I'll do it.
Out of my jungle! Reality.
I shouldn't need that much out of my Artificer in this matchup. So I'll just tempo down the 1-2. Sets up for a clean kill on the Stonehill defender. And then I can beat him up with the worm. Maybe I can find a secret off this. An ice barrier. Is there an alternative that protects my mana worm? There doesn't seem to be, so if I value the mana worm, I have to take an ice barrier in a matchup where ice barrier is really shitty. And fireball's a reasonably strong card. I mean, I guess I could take vaporize too. It's also about as shitty as ice barrier though. Probably less shitty though.
Excuse me, you are on fire.
Go get him, mana worm. Hit him for 5. Pop that armor.
Unleash me!
Well, that's a bummer. Can't really play around that.
Right away.
I can kill this with Volcanic Potion here if I want, but I just don't know if that's an efficient way to use my cards. I could also polymorph it, but he should have scarier things to polymorph.
I wonder.
Right away.
I'm just gonna hit him. Whatever. I'll put this damage on his guy though, because I assume this trade's gonna happen, or if he goes face, he gets vaped. But if this trade happens, then there's 2 damage on his guy, and it dies to either one of these. This guy actually just played her on Vaporize. It is super risky playing Aluneth here, but I'm gonna try it and just see how it works. He oozed my Aluneth. I guess he doesn't know that I'm a control deck yet. Haven't really... Well, I played an Artificer. Well, I think this is a good enough Volcanic Potion, so we'll polymorph this guy and then take, what, 6 power off his board?
Yes. Oh yes. They'll serve me now.
See what we can glyph into. Another polymorph is probably the way to go. I think I'm just gonna ping this and pass. I don't want a Doomsayer here because it pops his Possessed Lackey for free. And also I might want to combo it with a Blizzard later in the game. That's pretty good against Control Warlock. Counter a Gul'dan or N'Zoth turn. Let's just get Jaina in play while we have the chance.
Fear those who wield it.
I assume he'll trade these into my Water Elemental because he wants the Demon and he doesn't want this to get hero powered. Bummer. Played around the polymorph. Well, I guess I just play Medivh, since he killed my Aluneth for me. And then, what do I want to do? Randomly hero power one of these things? Not sure how productive that is. Probably more productive than hero powering his face, though. So if I go for a Blizzard here, I get a 6-drop out of my Atiesh, and then I hero power one this turn, it's frozen so he can't trade it off, and I just hero power another one next turn. So it seems pretty damn good.
Side effects? No. Trust me.
Okay. Always feels good when they have to defile to play around your hero power. Let's get one of the secrets out of the deck. I still have 3 secrets in the deck actually, which is surprising. Let's set up the counterspell. If the counterspell sticks, I might actually just play Togwaggle next turn.
Time is now.
I could have smacked my weapon into this and then hero powered it to get a water elemental, but I think I have enough stuff on board that he's going to have to play Twisting Nether if he has it. And I have another 6 mana spell in my hand for this. Or a Hellfire, I guess. Foil for the counterspell. Twisting Nether, sure. Do I want to not draw cards here so that I can get a 6 out of the Blizzard? I don't think so. Throw down the Arcanologist. Got an Ice Block. Do I want to draw more cards? I think I'm just going to play the Ice Block for now. Ideally, I get the other counterspell down and then go for the Togwaggle so he can't ransom. But, I don't know. That might not be a viable strategy this game. Well, this looks like a pretty easy polymorph blizzard if you ask me. Ping down a beetle. Get my water elemental.
Last warning.
And I think I'm pretty safe to just hit him in the face. Silenced my worm instead of silencing his frozen N'Zoth. I suppose that makes sense. I could polymorph the Rin here, but do I care? Like, I'm gonna draw my whole deck before he can do anything about it anyway, so I guess I don't care. Might want to just polymorph it because it's a 3/6 taunt, though. I think he still has a Void Lord in his deck, though, right? So probably want to save it for that. I've polymorphed two. Oh no, he Dark Pacted one of his Void Lords. The polymorph does guarantee that I can make a water elemental in the future, though. So I think I'm just gonna fireball this thing, actually.
Last warning.
And I think I'll trade off a little bit. With this bump with the water elemental next turn can be bump the mana worm in hero power, or it makes his N'Zoth die to AoE. Spellstone, sure. Seal, sure. I guess now that he has the Rin thing going, my counterspell's never gonna stop the ransom, is it? I guess I'm okay with it stopping the seals, though. The seals are pretty scary. Not so much because of burning out my deck, but it does give him a lot of stuff.
Time melts away.
So probably just gonna go counterspell, frostbolt, bump hero power. Seems good. If it hasn't become obvious, I'm not going to play this Arcane Intellect this game.
I wonder.
Alright. So he got rid of the counterspell so he could continue sealing. But my water elementals are going to get out of hand pretty soon. Let's just do this for now. I'm going to hold the Togwaggle until I'm in fatigue. That way I can play it as 8 mana, deal 1 damage to my opponent. And it just prevents him from getting a card out of my deck. Plus, I don't really want to give him my Fireball or my Medivh's Valet. Because dealing damage is pretty nice, actually. Just slow him down with the Doomsayer here. He's actually just going to pump out the seals, huh? Interesting. Well, I'll hit him with the Togwaggle here. He takes 1 fatigue damage, and it prevents him from drawing one of his cards this turn. Sure.
Almost out of cards.
Got a Stonehill Defender, nice. So I can't push face damage with my minions here. So I guess I have to play for the board, which is annoying. I guess the play here is polymorph his guy, make a water elemental. I guess I could go polymorph volcanic potion, make a water elemental. Clears out all of his taunts, right? But I don't think I'm getting minion damage past this point, am I? So I should just be worried about killing his things efficiently. I don't know. Let's just blow stuff up. So his hand is... I think it's the final seal. I don't think it's Azari yet. And then he has the King's Ransom. And his other cards are probably garbage. I feel like there's pretty likely some AoE in there. Don't really remember for sure. Well, there's an AoE. I want to make a water elemental this turn. It's actually not super convenient to do it. I can use the Defile to do it. I push 3 with my water elemental. Defile does 2 AoE. Hero power here, and then I guess I could fireball this. Probably want to fireball his face though. How much fatigue is he taking? He's taking 3. I'm actually pretty close to lethal, so I don't want to fireball his dude.
The time is now.
Little Stonehill Defender here. Whatever, take this because it's playable. If he plays Azari, he just dies. King's Ransom is not a card. I really have a hard time imagining him winning from here. Alright. I think he might even just be dead on board here. He's taking 4 from fatigue. So I don't even have to play the fireball, but it's easier if I do. Nice. So he killed my Aluneth with his ooze, but then my Togwaggle still stole, what, a Stonehill Defender and a Defile from his deck, and it put him like 2 deeper in fatigue than me. Pretty good Togwaggle. I tried out a lot of different cards in this deck, and this is the version that I ended up on that I liked the most. Compared to the first version I showed, I cut the 2 copies of Fireball. Originally they were in the deck because I figured with Aluneth it's pretty good to have a burn plan, but I don't really think it's feasible to work enough burn into the deck for Aluneth into Fireballs to really be a consistent win condition, although you certainly can pressure a lot of damage out of your Mana Worms. But in the end I felt the Fireballs weren't really worth it. I also cut the 2 copies of Arcane Artificer. Even though this very often does play like a control deck, you have minions to control the early game, and once you're in the late game you have like the best healing card, which is Jaina. I felt like the Artificers didn't really pull their weight. They have bad stats when you put them on the board, which is not a good follow-up to Mana Wormy things. And you usually need to be playing like 2 or 3 spells all in the same turn to get a significant amount of armor with this deck. I decided to put a Cabal Lackey in the deck, and the reason for this is on turn 10, you can go Togwaggle, and then with your 2 mana left over, you can go Lackey plus Counterspell. So basically, you just get to play Togwaggle, Counterspell in the same turn. That's pretty much the only reason Lackey's in the deck. You only need 1 because you're going to draw it with Aluneth. I think I like the Lackey inclusion. The other thing with this version that I'm at right now is I'm playing Mana Bind. So I figured Mana Bind is like an additional Counterspell in the deck. You play your Togwaggle, give them the Ransom, they play the Ransom, and then you get another Ransom. So you swap decks, they swap back, and then you swap them again. And in the end, it's like neither of you played a Ransom. But the problem is, Mana Bind is tested for in the exact same way as Counterspell. They're just going to play any spell that costs 5 or less. And if you have both up, they both always trigger on the first spell cast. So they just play Dark Pact or whatever. You counterspell their Dark Pact, and then you also get a Dark Pact, and then they just play Ransom, and you lose the game most of the time. So Mana Bind can be like a 3rd copy of the counterspell, so you don't have to try to like hold them earlier in the game. But I think playing 2 is probably overkill. There's also the issue that when you have Aluneth in play, you pretty much always have 10 cards. So sometimes you have Aluneth up, you go for the sick Togwaggle, Cabal Lackey, Mana Bind, and then you draw 3 cards and you're up to 10, and then Mana Bind just doesn't trigger when your hand is full. So they just play the King's Ransom anyway. I don't know, the Mana Bind is pretty sketchy. But I'm not really sure what I would replace it with. You don't really need a second Cabal Lackey, you don't need a second Ice Block. I actually think the first Ice Block is a little bit questionable, since you're very often hitting Fatigue with Aluneth, but it's good against like Paladin and stuff. So I don't really know what to do with the Mana Bind, maybe cut one copy or a Frost Nova or something. Most of the other cards I think I'm pretty happy with though. You win a surprising amount of games by just beating people up with Mana Worm, so that's a nice strength of the deck. But once you get into the late game, things are a little bit more questionable. Like if you get to play Frostlich Jaina in a decent board state, you're going to win pretty often, just because the power of this card alone is so high. But the whole weapon thing that we've got going on is sometimes a little bit clunky. Originally, I was just kind of hoping it was good enough to play Togwaggle with Aluneth up. They have to sink 5 mana into it and you steal 3 cards out of their deck. But it turns out, the way the drawing works, they actually effectively steal a card out of your deck too. So you don't get quite as much of an advantage as I originally thought. And there's also this awkward thing going on where much of the time you have to play Togwaggle and then Medivh back to back, where you're going to overdraw and take too much damage, and it's really awkward to set up a board state where it's safe to commit 8 mana 2 turns in a row. And then you even have games where you kind of have to hold Aluneth until you get toward the end, and then you have to play 6 into 8 into 8, and it's just super clunky. It also feels bad that a lot of times when you have Medivh the Guardian in your hand on turn 8, you can't really afford to play it, or if you do play it, you have to commit to just never playing Aluneth. So it just feels weird, but when it works out, it is powerful. I just don't know if it's as powerful as going all in on Frostlich Jaina, and I don't know, maybe like throwing in a N'Zoth or something for your other finisher. But hey, when you steal all 3 copies of their Jade Idol, it's pretty sick.